Hello, everyone, and welcome to this assembly on the 1st of May. Now, the start of May is traditionally a cause of celebration, not least because the first Monday after the 1st of May, schools and many businesses would close for the early spring bank holidays, a lovely long weekend to enjoy the spring weather. Now, this year, of course, is somewhat different in more ways than one. First, that the excitement of holiday is not quite the same when so many of us are stuck at home from school and work all the time at the moment. But secondly, this year was due to be different anyway, in that we were to have we will have a bank holiday Friday rather than the traditional Monday. And this was because, as you know, Friday the 8th of May is VE Day, or Victory in Europe Day, which remembers the signed surrender of Nazi Germany and the official end of World War II. So this year, VE Day marks its 75th anniversary, and as a big sort of celebration, the idea was that the bank holiday would be moved to coincide with VE Day, and we would have this long weekend of parades and celebrations, with all sorts of novel things happening. For example, pubs were going to be allowed to stay open late on the Friday, and the public would be encouraged to throw street parties to recreate or capture some of that joy and community spirit of those street parties that were held in the streets of London and across the country to celebrate the day the bombs fell silent, as it was known. Alas, next weekend's celebrations are, of course, not to be, or at least not to be in the way that anyone imagined. And we might have to wait a fair bit longer, or at least some bit longer, before we can enjoy parties again. I know several of you have had birthdays in the past few weeks, and will have birthdays in the weeks to come, the next 3 or 4 weeks to come. Thinking particularly perhaps of year 13, who are celebrating their 18th birthdays this year, which is 18th is a big one, and I know that you and in fact all of you will be looking forward to a time when you can enjoy parties again. So the normal bank holiday Monday, of course, is not usually connected to VE Day at all. It's got nothing to do with the Second World War. It's got more to do with flowers than bombs, as it's all about celebrating May Day, which is today. And this is slightly confusing, having said it's got nothing to do with wars or bombs, because, of course, May Day might be something that you've heard being shouted in moments of drama during war films by a pilot whose aircraft's been hit, or a captain whose boat's being sunk, or similar, because May Day is a emergency word that's still used to suggest some sort of life-threatening drama. But of course, those of you who are fluent in French, you will all know that, of course, this has got more to do with the French phrase "venez m'aider," which means "come and help me," and nothing to do with May bank holiday. That would be ridiculous. No, May Day itself has been celebrated way, way, way longer than the Second World War, right back, as so many of our traditional holidays do, right back to ancient Greece and Rome. For May Day specifically, it's the spring festivals of Dionysus and Aphrodite, where some of the traditions of unusual rituals at this time of the year were perhaps started, and some of those rituals continue to this day, as we'll talk about later. But the Romans would throw flowers and beans. Some sounds slightly painful. They'd throw beans at the crowds that would gather at this festival as a sort of celebration of the crops to come. And in the Gaelic culture, this time of year, May Day, and the last night, in fact, 30th of April, is a festival called Beltane, which means lucky fire. And during the Beltane festival, the unusual ritual would be to try and get one's cows and I'd love to see this, to jump over some fire as a way of, as a sort of charm, to stop those pesky fairies that otherwise would be stealing milk if you hadn't managed to get at least one of your cows to jump over some fire. I think the farmers too would be expected to jump over some fire during Beltane to protect them from bad luck with their livestock for the season ahead. And both of those, the similarity between both of those festivals, and in fact the English festival of May Day, is about anticipating the start of the summer. The Beltane cows were being moved from winter pasture to their sweet summer pastures, the sweet grass of summer, and the May Day celebration in this country was also linked to the rhythms of the land. And for us, it would probably have been more about moving sheep around, sheep being that the animal that had the biggest perhaps impact in the development of this country, or of any other. But it was about anticipating the summer lying ahead. Even though meteorologists would argue that it was June, May Day traditionally is the beginning of summer. And we had, and in some parts of the country still have, some pretty unusual celebrations of May Day. You might have heard of the May pole, which is a tall, like a flagpole that would be in the centre of the village, or on a kind of village green. At the top of the flagpole, there'd be lots of colourful ribbons, and people would hold a ribbon and dance around. You might have seen that or heard of that. May queens would be crowned. People would leave garlands of flowers on neighbours' doorsteps. There'd be parades with people dressed up as sort of pagan figures. Some of these things still happen in towns and villages around the UK, and you'd have parades with figures like the Green Man. And the Green Man, this will be familiar to some of you who studied A Christmas Carol last year, because the Green Man was the inspiration for that big friendly giant with the beard and the flowers in his hair that was the ghost of Christmas Present. And the Green Man pops up all over the place in English culture. Gives his name to many pubs, for instance, but also it pops out of the walls in lots of architecture all over the place. So it's a day where we celebrate the start of the summer. Looking ahead to a summer, of course, that will be all the sweeter for us who have had to wait that bit longer than usual for it. And whilst we might be missing out on the celebrations of May Day and of next week's bank holiday and Victory in Europe celebration weekend, there's still community spirit to be had in the unexpected ways that this crisis has brought people together, whilst physically keeping us all apart. So, on that note, happy May Day. Here's to the coming of the summer and the sweet days waiting for us around the corner. I hope you're well, and look forward to seeing you all back together soon. All the best.